This is the Architect Exam Podcast, the official podcast of the Young Architect Academy.
Let me start with a story. The Statue of Liberty is one of the most iconic structures in the world. Copper skin over an iron framework. Beautiful design. Brilliant engineering for its time. But there was a problem. Over the decades, the barrier between the copper skin and the iron armature started to break down. And once those two metals were in contact with moisture, the iron started corroding aggressively. So why did that happen? Because copper is far more noble than iron. And when those two metals touch in the presence of water, the iron is going to lose every time. By the 1980s, the entire iron armature had to be replaced with stainless steel during a massive restoration. The most famous structure in America had a galvanic corrosion problem. And here's the thing, this same exact problem shows up in your projects. You spec copper flashing over an aluminum storefront. 2 years later, the aluminum is corroding and the client is calling. Or a contractor grabs whatever screws are in the truck to fasten metal panels. 6 months later, rust streaks are running down the facade. Galvanic action is one of those topics that seem like a chemistry problem until it becomes your problem. On the ARE, you need to understand material compatibility. In practice, you need to not destroy buildings. Now, before we go any further, let me clear something up. You'll hear this called galvanic action or galvanic corrosion. It's the same thing. Some resources also call it bimetallic corrosion or dissimilar metal corrosion. We're going to use all of these interchangeably throughout the episode, and on the exam, you should recognize all of them. So let's break this down. Since this is a podcast and you're probably driving to work right now or walking the dog, don't worry about frantically taking notes. I've already made those notes for you. So head over to youngarchitect.com/galvanic and grab a free 2-page summary of everything we're covering today. It's got the Galvanic series chart, the 3 ingredients, the common problem combos, all of it. Print it out, stick it on your wall, keep it in your study folder. And hey, while I have you for a second, I need a quick favor. This podcast is completely free. No ads, no sponsors. We just put this content out because we genuinely want to help you pass your exams. But here's the deal. Our view counts are solid, but our engagement is way behind. And the algorithm cares about engagement. Follows, likes, comments. That's what tells YouTube and Spotify and Apple to show this podcast to other candidates who need it. So if this episode helps you, or honestly, if any of our episodes have helped you, just take 5 seconds right now and hit the follow or subscribe button. Drop a comment. It's free. It takes no effort and it helps the next person find us. Okay, back to metals trying to destroy each other. So here's the basic idea. When two dissimilar metals are in contact and moisture is present, one metal corrodes faster than it normally would on its own. That's it. That's the core concept. But let me give you an analogy to really make it click. When you put two different metals together in the rain, you're essentially creating a giant accidental battery that is slowly eating your building. The metals generate a small electrical current, and that current drives corrosion. Now, here are the terms you need to know. The anode is the active, less noble metal. That's the one that corrodes. It's giving up its electrons. The cathode is the noble metal. That's the one that's protected. It's receiving those electrons. Think of it like a bully relationship. The stronger metal steals electrons from the weaker one, and the weaker one breaks down. The bully gets stronger, the victim gets weaker. And in architectural terms, noble just means a metal that resists corrosion. Active means a metal that's prone to corroding. These are the standard terms you'll see on the exam, so get comfortable with them now. All right, this is the framework that ties everything together. Galvanic corrosion needs exactly 3 things to happen. First, you need 2 dissimilar metals, 2 different types of metal in the same assembly. Second, you need electrical contact between them. They're touching, or they're connected through a fastener, or they're linked by some conductive path. And third, you need an electrolyte. In the real world, that just means moisture, like rain, humidity, condensation, any water. Here's what's powerful about this. Remove any one of these three and you stop the reaction. That's it. That's the entire basis for every prevention strategy we'll talk about later. If you can break one leg of this triangle, you win. Now, a quick side note on environment. Salt air acts like a super electrolyte. Coastal and marine projects accelerate the whole galvanic process dramatically. So if you're designing anywhere near the ocean, material compatibility becomes even more critical. The margin for error shrinks. And for an exam perspective, if a question describes a situation where all three ingredients are present, you should immediately be thinking corrosion. If the question removes one ingredient, like putting a barrier between the metals, that's the fix. Now that you understand the mechanism, let's talk about which metals are the bullies and which ones are the victims. There's a chart called the Galvanic series that ranks metals from noble to active. You don't need to memorize the entire thing, but you absolutely need to know where the common architectural metals fall on it. Here's how it breaks down. At the noble end, the metals that resist corrosion, you've got gold, stainless steel, copper, and bronze. These are the tough ones. These are the bullies. In the middle, you've got lead and tin. And at the active end, the metals that are most vulnerable to corrosion, you've got aluminum, zinc, and steel or iron. These are the ones that lose the fight. Now, here's the distance rule, and this is really important. The further apart two metals are on the galvanic series, the faster the active one corrodes. Copper and aluminum are far apart on the series. That's why copper absolutely destroys aluminum when they're in contact. Two metals that are close together on the series, that's much less risk. The reaction is weaker because the electrical potential between them is smaller. Now, I want to connect something here that I think is really cool. The word galvanized. You've heard it 1,000 times, galvanized steel. But have you ever thought about where that word comes from? It comes from galvanic, the same root word. So galvanized steel has a zinc coating, and that zinc coating is literally a sacrificial anode. It's designed to corrode first so that the steel underneath doesn't have to. The name is telling you exactly what's happening. The zinc sacrifices itself through galvanic action to protect the steel. So every time you say galvanized, you're actually describing this exact process.
You're listening to the Architect Exam Podcast, your guide to passing the ARE.
Okay, this next concept is one that a lot of people overlook, but it's really important, especially when it comes to fasteners. It's called the surface area ratio. Here's how it works. When a small piece of active metal is connected to a large piece of noble metal, corrosion accelerates dramatically. The small anode has to serve a much larger cathode, and all that electrical demand is concentrated on a tiny piece of metal. It corrodes fast. Now flip it. A large anode connected to a small cathode, corrosion slows down. The workload is spread out over a bigger surface area, so no one spot gets hit too hard. This is exactly why fastener selection matters so much. Picture a tiny aluminum screw holding up a large stainless steel panel. That aluminum screw is the active metal. The stainless panel is the noble metal. And that tiny screw is taking the full force of the galvanic attack from a massive panel. It dissolves. The connection fails. And now your panel is falling off the building. That's the worst possible surface area ratio. Small anode, huge cathode. So here's a practical takeaway. When you're choosing fasteners, the fastener should always be the same material or more noble than the material being fastened. A stainless steel screw in an aluminum panel, that works as long as you still use a neoprene washer to break the electrical contact. The fastener is the noble one, but you still want that isolation. An aluminum screw in a stainless steel panel, that's a disaster. The fastener is the victim, and it's tiny, and it will fail fast. And honestly, this is where a huge number of real-world galvanic failures happen. Not in the big dramatic assemblies, in the fasteners. The little connections that nobody thinks about until they fail. All right, now let's walk through the real-world metal combinations that cause the most problems. And I'm going to warn you right now, there's a recurring villain in this section, and that's copper. Copper is the bully of architectural metals. It sits high on the galvanic series, it's widely used, and it beats up almost everything it touches. So let's start with copper and aluminum. Copper is way more noble than aluminum. When they're in contact with moisture, the aluminum corrodes aggressively. You'll see a white powdery oxidation, pitting, and eventually failure of the aluminum component. Now, the classic mistake here is copper flashing that drips onto aluminum storefront framing below. The copper doesn't even have to be touching the aluminum directly, but we'll get into that in a minute. Next, copper and steel or iron. Same story. Copper wins. The steel or iron corrodes. Watch for copper pipes or copper flashing anywhere near steel lintels or steel supports. If moisture can bridge the gap between them, you've got a problem. Then there's copper and galvanized steel. Remember, galvanized steel has that zinc coating. Copper accelerates zinc corrosion dramatically. Water runoff from copper onto galvanized gutters or downspouts eats through the zinc coating fast. And once the zinc is gone, the steel underneath starts corroding too. A classic example is a copper roof with galvanized gutters below. That combination is a ticking clock. Now let's talk about stainless steel and aluminum. Stainless is more noble. Aluminum corrodes. This comes up a lot with fasteners. Stainless screws in aluminum panels will cause corrosion around the screw holes if you don't have proper isolation between them. And here's a tricky one. Stainless steel and carbon steel. People assume these are compatible because they're both steel. They are not. Stainless is significantly more noble than carbon steel, and the carbon steel will corrode at the contact point. Don't let the similar names fool you. Now here's the part that surprises a lot of people. Water runoff. Direct contact isn't the only way galvanic corrosion happens. Water that touches a more noble metal picks up ions and carries them downstream. It becomes a conductor. Copper runoff is especially aggressive. Water draining off a copper element onto aluminum, zinc, or steel below will cause corrosion even if the metals are never physically touching. So when you're designing, you can't just think about what's touching what. You have to think about the entire drainage path. Where does the water go after it hits the copper? What's below it? What's downstream? And here's a simple rule to remember. Water should flow from active to noble, not noble to active. Water washing off an aluminum parapet onto a copper roof? No problem. Water washing off a copper roof onto aluminum below? That's where the damage happens. The copper ions hitch a ride in the water and attack whatever active metal is downstream. This is one of those details that separates someone who understands the concept from someone who just memorized a chart. So now you know what causes galvanic corrosion and which metals are the worst offenders. Let's talk about how to stop it. And here's the beautiful thing. Remember those 3 ingredients? Every single prevention strategy works by removing one of them. That's it. That's the playbook. The first strategy is to physically separate the metals. Break that electrical contact. You can use neoprene gaskets, plastic spacers, rubber washers, bituminous paint, tape, or coatings between the metals. This is really common with aluminum panels and stainless fasteners. You put an isolating washer between the screw and the panel, and now they're not in direct electrical contact anymore. The second strategy is to use compatible metals. Reduce the dissimilar metals problem in the first place. Choose metals that are close together on the galvanic series. Keep metals in the same family. If everything in your detail is aluminum and aluminum fasteners, there's no galvanic potential at all. The third strategy is to break the electrolyte path. Remove the moisture. Sealants, proper drainage design, protective coatings. If you can keep water from bridging between the two metals, the reaction can't happen. No electrolyte, no corrosion. And here's a quick trick on coatings that's highly testable. If you can only paint one of the two metals, paint the noble one. Paint the bully, not the victim. Why? Because if you paint the active metal and that paint gets a tiny scratch, you've just created the worst possible surface area ratio. A microscopic exposed anode against a massive noble cathode. That scratch will pit and drill a hole through the metal in record time. But if you paint the noble metal and it scratches, Well, the exposed spot is just a small cathode against a large anode, much less damage. So always coat the cathode if you have to choose. The fourth strategy is the sacrificial anode approach. Let one metal protect the other one on purpose. So this is intentionally using a more active metal to protect the one you care about. And this is exactly what galvanizing does. The zinc corrodes first, so the steel doesn't have to. It's not a flaw, it's the design. And I can't stress this last one enough. Spec your fasteners. Do not leave fastener selection to whatever the contractor has in the truck. Call out compatible fasteners in your specifications. This is where a huge number of galvanic failures actually happen in the field. A beautiful metal panel assembly ruined by the wrong screw. All right, let's talk about how this shows up on the exam. Anytime you see dissimilar metals in a question, I want you to immediately think galvanic corrosion. That phrase is your trigger. The exam isn't going to ask you to recite the galvanic series from memory. What it will do is describe a scenario and ask you to identify the problem or choose the right material. Common question formats include material selection questions like which fastener is appropriate for this assembly, or detailed problem questions like which condition would cause premature failure. You'll see questions about flashing and cladding connections, roofing details with mixed metals, curtain wall assemblies, storefront assemblies. If you understand the three ingredients and you know that copper beats up everything below it on the series, you can reason through any question they throw at you. You don't need to memorize, you just need to understand. And if you remember nothing else from this episode, remember these 3 rules. Keep it in the family. Use the same metal for everything in a detail if you can. Same family, no fighting. Copper is a bully. Keep it away from aluminum and steel. Copper wins every time. And fasteners are the weak link. Always make sure the screw is tougher, meaning more noble than the thing it's holding. Don't leave fastener selection to the field. Those 3 rules will get you through most galvanic corrosion questions on the exam and most real-world situations too. If this episode clicked for you and you want to go deeper on materials, assemblies, and building details, check out the ARE 101 course membership at academy.youngarchitect.com. It bundles all of our courses together: PPD 101, PDD 101, Building Codes 101, and more. I've built the PPD and PDD courses from the ground up, and they cover material compatibility, envelope detailing, structural concepts, and the stuff that ties directly into what we talked about today. And if you want a structured study plan with live coaching, accountability, and a community of candidates who are all pushing towards the same goal, check out ARE Bootcamp at youngarchitect.com/bootcamp. And one more time, if this episode helped you, take 5 seconds and hit follow or subscribe. Drop a comment. It genuinely helps us reach more candidates. That's galvanic action. It's predictable. You just need to know which metals fight each other and how to keep them apart. Understand the 3 ingredients, know the series, spec your fasteners, and always think about where the water goes. In practice, understanding this saves you from callbacks, failures, and some really awkward conversations with clients and contractors. Thanks for listening. Good luck studying, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Architect Exam Podcast. Ready to take your studying to the next level? Visit our online ARE Architecture School website at academy.youngarchitect.com to learn more about how we can help you. See you next time.